and welcome to Conversations with the Reverend G. I am Reverend Grenetta Mason, aka Reverend G, and I'm here every Monday night bringing you conversations with guests from all walks of life, from different perspectives, with different careers. And we come together and we share our stories. And we talk about love and we talk about life. And we also talk about spirituality. We talk about spirituality in a practical way. How does it support you in your everyday life? And there's so much going on now. We're all kind of like, what in the world? Every day we wake up and there's something different that we have to deal with on an emotional level. So we look to share what practices, what spiritual practices can support us during these times. Because I tell you, I have to use everything that I have. And I talk about the spiritual toolkit, and it's what's right at hand for you. What are your consistent practices? What things work for you? And we all have our own personal spiritual toolkit because what works for you may not work for me. And you can then develop those things that really support you when you do need to shift or when you're going through something and you need a different perspective. So when we talk about our spiritual practices, we hope that we inspire you and share ways that can support you through whatever you're going through and through this time, because there are really some trying times. And my thing was, I really want to support you in finding joy and living your best life with grace and ease. As I also acknowledge, like, wow, what does that look like with everything going on in the world? So we come on, and my guests, and we come to inspire you, to support you. We want to touch you. We want to give you information. You can find me every day on Facebook as Reverend Grenetta Mason. I'm on Instagram as Rev Grenetta, and I share inspirational messages to support you through your day. Tonight, I have a special guest. I have Ryan Rattel here today with me. And Ryan is a creative. He's a producer. And he's the co-founder and CEO of Triple Three Creative. Hey, Ryan.
How's it going?
All is well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. This is the only way I get to see you these days.
I know. And I feel like you're a celebrity. So I'm like, ooh, I got a celebrity on my show.
I don't know about that. But...
No, but you're my celebrity friend, right? I'm excited because it's interesting, as as I've known you, and then I look at some of the things that you've done, and I was like, yeah, he is a creative. And going from looking at your bio and some of the things that you've done, talk about how you've transitioned through your career to get to this point of owning your own business.
Sure, yeah. So Triple R Creative is about 5 years old. Founded the company with my husband, Sam Rattel, which is how I met you. You're good dear friends with Sam for many years. So, before that, I've had sort of a back and forth journey. I grew up really interested in theater. I performed, I designed sets, I, drew the posters and designed the posters for production. So theater was always a passion of mine. And, as I got older and I went to school, I wasn't sure how theater was going to play a role in my life, but I knew it was something I wanted to do. So I went to school. I studied performance. I went to school at Emerson College in Boston. And then when I graduated and I moved to New York, I thought, okay, I need a paycheck. How's that going to go? And, I did a little bit of acting work here in the very beginning, but I very quickly fell into the behind the scenes business of Broadway and became a publicist on Broadway, which I think if you had asked me when I was growing up, I didn't even know what a publicist or a press agent was. But I found that it was a good sort of combination of all the things that I really enjoyed. There was some creative...
So tell us, though, before you move on from that, maybe we don't know, right? Either. Oh, yeah. Or in the sense of, just give us a little bit of what is a publicist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the greater world sort of calls it publicist. On Broadway, we tend to call it a press agent. That's sort of
Okay.
the older term. But essentially, it's that person who pitches stories to the media, to newspapers, websites, magazines, television shows, and gets the word out about a person, place, or thing. So for a Broadway show, we pitch all the stars in the cast, the director, the creative team, the costumes. We pitch performances. So if you turn on the Today Show or Good Morning America and you see the cast of a Broadway show performing, that's because someone like me reached out to the producer of a show and said, "Hey, I'm doing this really great Broadway show. Will you have it on?" So that's the very short version of
Right, no, but the idea is to understand. And I say that because, as you say, you didn't know what it was, but we want people to know that there are these opportunities, because a lot of people think about just being on the stage and the actor in the show, but there's so many more opportunities behind the scene, you know. And so that's why I say,
so
let us know what that is.
Yeah, it takes hundreds, if not thousands, of people to get a Broadway show or a film or a TV show on stage or on the screen. So that is something I talk to a lot of students about, is that, sure, you know, if you want to be on stage, yes, pursue that. It doesn't always work out for everyone, as we know. But also there are people who love theater, who love film, who love TV, but aren't necessarily that in front of the scenes kind of person. So yes, you're right. There's so many jobs that people don't really know exist, but you can have a really great career in and make a really good check and a fulfilling life. So that's what happened to me. I fell into PR. It was great because there's a creative outlet to it. There's, you know, creative writing. There's you have to have a lot of people skills because you have to deal with the producer and the director and the actors. You're kind of the one person really that deals with everyone involved in a show. And so for me, that's really fun. You know, I went from being in Neil Simon shows to one of my first shows that I worked on Broadway. I was in a rehearsal room with Neil Simon, who was rehearsing his musical that was coming to Broadway. So really, really cool. Did that for a long time and had a great run of it. Worked for a couple agencies here in New York. And then a couple years ago, I had the itch to sort of get back to my creative roots, which meant for me a wide variety of things. I do graphic design, so that's something I've been wanting to do again. And producing, which is sort of the ultimate creative process, right? Taking an idea and turning that into a production and then seeing it all the way through to an actual performance on stage. So my husband comes from fashion and music. And so about 5 years ago, we decided to create a smaller boutique agency called Triple R Creative that handles a wide variety of services for people, places, things. So we do PR, we do branding, we do social and digital, we have an image direction component. So we're able to sort of apply that onto performers or onto productions and really get the word out about things in a larger way. And then the goal eventually is to apply those services to our own projects that we're currently building. So Sam has a lot of projects. I have a lot of productions in the works. And so we're trying to kind of get back to our artistic roots and kind of make ourselves the clients for a little bit. We still have tons of clients and we'll keep that going and the agency will always grow and thrive. But I think the pandemic really showed us, you know, it's now or never. So get back to the things that you love and make that a focus.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you were saying that, it's like pre-pandemic and now, navigating that whole world. What are some of the differences that you're seeing in navigating now through even just one of the productions you guys are doing?
Yeah, you know, pre-pandemic, I think for everyone, right, life was so crazy and so full and we worked so much and we were racing back and forth to all of these different things and events, and it was really frantic. The beginning of the pandemic was kind of a sigh of relief and a breath for Sam and I, because we just come off of about 3 years. You know, the agency was new. We had a client named Billy Porter who kind of blew up just before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And so we spent the couple months before the pandemic with Billy doing award season in LA. And then we were going to fashion weeks around the world and to London. And so it was kind of a nonstop period of time for us. So I remember it clearly because in the beginning of February, we came back from all of that travel. We flew back from London Fashion Week. It was my 40th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 days later, I got COVID, which I didn't know it was COVID. We weren't really talking about it then. It was just starting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of months later, I got tested, and of course, I had all the antibodies, and it was COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But those first few weeks of the pandemic, when Broadway shut down, when the world shut down, we thought, okay, this will be temporary, but at least we can take a nap. We can, bit, not have to get on a plane. We can have dinner at home. Mm-hmm. We can, have some alone time and just do whatever we want to do. Mm-hmm. And so it was great for, like a month. Now what? Now what do we do?
Right.
Thank God we had saved some money, and we were fine. But, 4 walls, just the two of us, nothing else going on, And so things kind of, as things have come back to normal, I think we're really trying to focus more on that work-life balance, right? And trying to make sure that we remember that time and give ourselves some time and space to worry about ourselves, to start going back to the gym. We started this company and we both gained like 30 pounds. So it's like, let's make time for ourselves. Let's go to the gym. Let's, spend an hour at least a day doing something that we love that has nothing to do with our clients or each other or anything else. Our company now, during the pandemic, we got a beautiful new office. That was one of the perks of the pandemic. We got a really beautiful space near Bryant Park. But we spend, half and half, our employees and ourselves. We work from home some days and we work here some days. So that flexibility is really great. And learning, that we can actually say no. We don't have to say yes to every little thing. We don't have to run around like chickens with our heads cut off.
Right, exactly. That balance.
Yeah. And so I think that's really what it's taught us, is to take a breath, focus on the things that are really important, and we'll get to the other things and we'll figure that all out. The pandemic, I had a couple deaths during the pandemic that actually weren't related to COVID, but, that happened. And so all of those things, are so life-changing and really force you, especially as I get a little older, to take stock of what's important in life and reevaluate and reprioritize.
It really, really does. Yeah. I know that you did a lot with youth in the theater, right? And talk a little bit about some of those projects. And you recently had a project, right?
Still going. A little show called Merrily Mannerly. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Talk about those projects, and what I want to talk about too is the impact of theater for youth and how at this time, with everything that's going on, how you can support it through some creative something or outlets or out.
Yeah. I always have loved children's theater. I just remember when I was in first grade and we took a field trip to see Peter Pan, and it was the most magical thing. And I just remember, how I felt seeing that. And so I've always tried to do productions for kids. I was the artistic director of Hartford Children's Theater in Hartford, Connecticut for a number of years, which was also sort of life-changing because Hartford is a really funny, it's a funny city, right? So it's the insurance capital of the country, major Aetna, the Hartford, major insurance companies, lots of corporations. So it's really busy during the day, but at night it becomes somewhat of a ghost town, right? And so our theater was across the street from the Mark Twain House. And it's interesting because, right, one street you're on, sort of where we were, it feels like the Upper West Side. There's private schools, people have money, strollers, restaurants, everything's lovely. You turn another block and it's, the kids might not have desks. They might not have had breakfast that day. It's a completely different community.
Mhm.
And so our education program did programming for both, right? We had theater shows where, if you could buy a ticket, you came and you saw them. And then we had in-school programming for a wide variety of schools. And so
Mhm.
when I got there, I thought, okay, great. Yes, we're selling tickets and people are coming to see the shows, but we're also going into schools and we're doing theater exercises for kids who are, enjoying it. But some of these kids have never seen a theater show in their lives.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
we immediately built a program where we took books and we turned them into plays and musicals. We incorporated that program. So we would go into these inner city schools, we would give them the book. The
Mhm.
teachers would, read the book aloud with them in class. They would do, we had study guides, so they would do exercises around the show and
Mhm.
learn. Every show that we did had a theme or a learning lesson, right?
Mhm.
And then at the end of that, at the end of the semester, we would then take the show, we would come into their school and do the show. So they would have gone from, a book, getting a
Mhm.
book, learning about the themes and the lessons in the book, to then seeing that book come to life in front of them and being able to meet the characters.
Mhm.
So to see these kids just come to life when,
Mhm.
these actors and characters were, feet away from them was really incredible.
Mhm.
So that's sort of, the performance. That's what I love. It inspires kids to maybe get involved in theater or
Mhm.
pick up another book or just get
Mhm.
excited about something. So
Mhm.
that's side one. The
Mhm.
other side of it is, I've worked in, there's an organization called Broadway Dreams Foundation, week-long intensives. They take kids and they basically put on a show, a concert, a musical review at the end of the week alongside Broadway stars. So,
Mhm.
these Broadway stars come in and teach the kids, but then they get to stand on stage and sing with someone who is Elphaba on Broadway, or
Mhm.
whatever the case may be, do a dance with someone who is in a Broadway show now. Um, and through that process, and a lot of those kids are on scholarships, so we do go to inner city schools, and
Mhm.
price is no barrier. So if you don't have the money, you know,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter, you can apply and you can still participate. And then at the end of the program, there are Broadway casting directors who are part of this. We have had probably now about 200 plus kids who have taken the program, been a part of it, and either one of the Broadway directors or a casting agent saw the kid and said, "You're incredible. I'm working on this show
Mhm.
on Broadway. I'm looking for someone." And they've actually cast them in Broadway shows.
Mhm.
And, what you think would be like a summer camp, and then they end up getting a Broadway show.
You
Uh,
said it's called Broadway Dreams?
Broadway Dreams, yeah.
Wow.
MyBroadwayDreams.org, I believe, is the website. But
Mhm.
it's a really incredible opportunity. And again, I would talk to those kids a lot about, sure, you might be on stage and you might be a Broadway star, and that's great. But if not, you can be a general manager, you can be a company manager,
Mhm.
you can be a publicist, you could be a set
Mhm.
designer, you can make the
Mhm.
props for the show. So
Mhm.
explaining to them all of those various opportunities, but also just being a part of a theater program and learning, being on stage requires so much confidence,
Yeah.
so much, it's teamwork,
Mhm. Mhm.
dedication. You have to sit down and learn your lines.
Mhm.
You're one person, but you're responsible. If you don't know your stuff, you're gonna kind of trip up everyone else on stage.
Right.
So it
Mhm.
teaches all of these great life values that even if you want to be a lawyer, or if you want to work in corporate America, or whatever it is,
Mhm.
you learn so much from being
Mhm.
involved in theater or improv or whatever
Mhm.
it is. There are
Mhm.
just so many life lessons that can be had just going through, being in production, whether that's a school production or college, high school, community theater, whatever it is. It's
Mhm.
really it's incredible.
Yeah. Yes, I was thinking we were talking about earlier about the team, all the people that are around you to support
Yeah,
you having what you want. And you talked about the impact that you have in everybody. And I like the idea how when you talked about theater, it's training for life
yeah,
and for working in any kind of environment because it's about team. It's about you know, being a part of community and working
yeah.
together. And so, yeah, that's pretty cool. Did you recently did a show in Connecticut?
Yeah, we're developing a show called Merrily Mannerly, which is
Yeah.
a
Okay.
children's book. It was a book that we've turned into a musical. We did a production in Connecticut. We're bringing it to New York. We've just been it's the other thing the pandemic has sort of made difficult. Planning is hard, right? Because we were going to open the show several months ago, but kids couldn't be vaccinated. So we felt, is it really smart to open a show that's all young kids who's, 5 and younger, some older, but it just didn't feel like the right time business person to open the show. So we've postponed that, but we're looking to the fall now to open it. But it's a really fun book. It was written by 2 moms in Connecticut who were lawyers and friends and went to college together. They decided they both lost their mothers at an early age. And so they were looking for a way to impart all of the wisdom that both of their mothers imparted on them to their kids and other kids. And so it's this 8-year-old girl who inherits her grandmother's manifesto of manners. So she knows everything there is to know about manners, teamwork, respect, kindness, all of the things. And then a princess moves in next door. And so she's very excited. What 8-year-old girl isn't excited about a princess? Right. And she finds out that the princess is from the land of Everrude. There are no manners in Everrude. And it has to teach her how to, have a little etiquette and be kind to others. So it's an hour-long show. It's really fun. We get the kids up and moving and dancing. There's audience participation. The music is really upbeat. So it's really great. And we're excited to kind of bring that to New York soon. And for me, with, everything that's happening in the world, despite what anyone's politics is, right? There's obviously a lot of unkindness in the world.
Absolutely.
There are school shootings. There are all of these things that are just so scary. And so Merrily kind of goes back to teaching people and reminding people, especially young people, of the golden rule, which is treat others the way you want to be treated, and kind of just reminding everyone of lessons of kindness, because we seem to have forgotten that.
Yeah, it's like it's been lost somewhere at this point, right?
So insane. It just seems to be getting worse rather than better. And every day there's a shooting, and it's terrifying.
It's terrifying. That's why I see when I talk about spiritual practices, and I talk about spiritual practices to support, and I also talk about mental health, right?
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, and getting the support, because it's tough out there these days, right? And so what is it that keeps us smiling, and I love laughing and joy and, and being all in there. But, it really takes discipline, and it takes something not to fall into. And I always say I just keep it outside. I just don't get emotionally involved. But then it's not out of not caring and not wanting to. And then Jasmine will always say, well, if you don't get involved, do you really do anything, right? And so there's that whole thing about how, right, you call me on that, how much you get involved in the support. What do you do, right? If I just say, oh, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to, but if you take it all in, oh my God, right?
So much.
So
that's how, I try and watch the news, or at least go online and check the headlines, but there's only so much I can do, because there's so much. The news just seems to be, it's all bad news, and it just it's upsetting when you sit down and watch it. So, I'm informed, but I try not to get mired down in it. And I think, there's such a stigma with, I'm from Connecticut. And so my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother, there's such a sort of an old New England mentality of just kind of suppressing everything and keeping the feelings in. And we don't really go to therapy, and we don't really talk about it. And we don't, it's just crazy to me. And, I've been in and out of therapy for years, just because it's it is tough out there. And, I work in the entertainment industry, so if I don't go to therapy, I'd be drinking all day long. Gotta talk to someone about it.
You gotta have a way to get it out, right? Rather than the alcohol, right?
Yeah.
You gotta have somebody.
You said other people, you want to be there to support other people, but there's only so much you can do. People really have to take their own mental health and sort of take control of it. Because yes, as a friend, you want to be there. And of course, I'm happy to have any of my friends vent to me. But, you know, it's like your friends only want to hear so much bad news, right? You sort of, people can be there to be a support, but if all you're doing is unloading on your friends all the time, that's exhausting for other people
They're
too.
gonna want you to shift, right? And they're gonna want you right, exactly.
Totally. And sometimes it's better just to have an unbiased opinion of
Person
someone who
that you
doesn't
can go
really
to.
know all the players or you. So even if, I don't go to therapy all the time, but the pandemic happened. I lost my father. I lost my brother 3 months later. I'm, in a marriage. I'm running a company. It's nice to like check up with someone every once in a while and say, here's what's going on. How do I help me deal with this? Or just to say it out loud to someone.
With everything that's going on. Yeah, and that's good to hear because I think that too, people don't necessarily know what they'll get out of it. And if it's like in our community, there was a stigma to it, and there was like, am I going to do it? But how do we get the message across the benefits of doing it, right? And I think we have to come from that space of being able to express the benefits, being able to let people know by doing there. Because even in my mind, I wanted to say, do you just keep going? Or is there, and when you said in and out, right? I wanted to say, well, in and out, right? Well, it's like a lifetime thing. But that's just like some of the things you hear. Oh, you never lose your therapist, and then, so then for me, it goes to then, well, what tools are we getting here? When we go to the therapist, do we walk out with some tools that we can use outside of that relationship, right?
Yeah, totally.
And, so when I think about it like that, that's why I think about spirituality and spiritual tools, because when we talk about it, from a perspective of the same. If your therapist, and I'll just use this crazy example that popped in my head. At one point, they were like, "Go beat a pillow," right?
What did the pillow do to you?
You know what I'm saying?
Beat the pillow.
Right. But I would say, why not go meditate or something, right?
Yeah.
Or sing a song or play a guitar, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So that's what, when I talk about what are the spiritual practices, what's in your spiritual toolkit, to be aware of some of the things that can support you through these times, right? And as I always say, I use everything I can, and I'm just rolling through these different things because I want to laugh and have the joy. And I like, this has been like the 2 years, so many deaths, right? That it was just like, don't count, right? Stop counting and stop even. Just find the space of peace and understanding. Find the space of knowing. Like, my whole thing has always been everything is in perfect divine order, right? And being able to stand in knowing that, right? And being able to like say, all right, I can find some peace in knowing that everything is in divine order, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So we talk about the spiritual practices. We talk about spirituality. Talk about your spiritual journey. You grew up in Connecticut and Boston area. What was that whole childhood experience like? Right.
So Connecticut, right? So Northeast Connecticut. So I always say, grew up Catholic, right? And it was a small Connecticut town where there's literally a town green with a white steepled church and a gazebo, right? Like that's I didn't know anyone Black. I didn't know anyone Jewish. All I knew were white people who were Catholic. That's it. And so, we had one in high school. I think we had maybe one Black student who came in and was like, "Oh no, I'm out of here," and transferred out.
It's like, no, don't do it, right.
And so it's tricky, growing up, I made all of my I went to Catholic church, CCD, First Communion, all the things. And for me, later in life now, I'm not really a practicing Catholic. I live by the rule, work hard and be nice to people. The Catholic Church for me, I think the sort of nail in the coffin, which truly, my dad's funeral, my parents grew up Catholic. And so my mom was insistent that my father have his funeral at a Catholic church. The White Steeple Church, which is a Unitarian church, I believe, down the street from us, congregational. We started to go there for a bit, and we met the pastor. Again, growing up, I didn't know Black people, Jewish people. I didn't know gay people. All the gay people in that town are married with children, right? Like no one's gay.
Right. I got it. Right.
Years ago, maybe like 5 years ago, this, White Steeple Church was kind of falling apart. No one was going anymore. And so they brought in a new pastor who is gay, and his the organ player is his husband. And so we went to this church, and now this town where like no one was that accepting, you can't get a seat in that church because it's packed, and he makes it accessible. What I don't like about the Catholic Church, and sorry if I'm offending Catholics who are tuned in, but it's so much pomp and circumstance. It's so much sort of being talked at. There's no, I didn't feel any connection, right? I didn't know how to apply it to my life. It felt like we're just reading old scriptures, and we're standing up and we're sitting down and we're kneeling, and what's the deal? And then you have to go into a dark room and like tell all your sins to a man in a screen. Like it was just all very weird. And so now we go to this other church, and that pastor, he talks about real life situations, how to apply your faith to your everyday life. Amazing. So when my father, we had to have the funeral at the Catholic Church, I vowed to myself that was the last time I would actually step foot in a Catholic church unless I, had to. But it was, organizing that funeral, it was a pastor or a priest that didn't know my father. So we asked him ahead of time, do you want me to come to the church and we can sort of, share some stories about my father to you, just so that the service feels a little more personable? And the response was, no, I have the obituary. That's all I need. And so it just felt like the service had nothing to do with my father. Kind of mispronounced my dad's name a couple times. It's not very difficult. Said, just basically read the obituary, and it was so impersonal. And, so I've kind of moved away from that. And,
you know what I wanted to say? It was interesting to go from the town that you grew up in to today. What do you think was the shift in just by bringing in the gay minister and his husband, just shifted this whole town, or did the people change? You know what I'm saying? Is there a whole new group of people?
I wish I knew. I mean, the second time we did a family funeral, it's all about the funerals. We did a family funeral there 5 years ago. It was the first time that we met this priest or this pastor. And then the second time, Sam and I went back to Connecticut, and I thought, you know what, why don't we go to Sunday service at Jonathan's church? And so we went, and my sister texted and said, you better get here. There are no seats. So we got there. We saw this full church. There was a trans woman who walked in front of us and sat, somewhere near us, which, in this little town in Connecticut, never in my life would I have thought we would see such a diverse crowd. And so we're, sitting in the service, and I started to cry a little bit. And Sam was like, what is wrong with you? What's happening? Like, he's just singing like a hymn. It's really not a big deal. And I'm like crying. And I just thought, I'm looking around, I'm seeing families that I know, and my chorus teacher from school, this trans woman here, a gay priest. Like, I just couldn't take it in, because in all my years, I had never seen anything like this. And so I think, he just came in and really built up the community, right? There's all kinds of events. He does, like at Christmas, he does a big Victorian, they all together decorate the church. It's an old church. So it's like this big Victorian celebration. They all wear costumes and sing Victorian Christmas carols. And, they just do so many events, and he's really built the community, and he's gotten people excited about faith again. And I think talking about the Catholic Church, which not a lot of people are going to the Catholic Church in town anymore, because they're not reaching out anymore to get people excited about faith, or to even speak about faith in a way that people can understand. Or, Catholic Church, you talk about the Holy Ghost and, Jesus crawling into the tomb and coming back to life, and, all of these things that just seem so, if you're not someone who's grown up going to church, they seem so crazy and foreign. And so if you don't have someone who can like break it down for you and just talk about the basic principles about, hey, we're here just to kind of like love each other, the right thing, believe in something greater than yourself.
And I think that's what we're going to have to get to with the youth, because at this point we're seeing that the organized religion is being rejected, right? So we'll have to come up with some really creative ways to teach them the basis of all the things you're saying, right?
Insane,
and I've talked to some people about that are in the church, even talking about how to bring the youth back to church, because our parents just took us to church. Like you said, that was just what you were going to do, right?
It wasn't a choice.
Right, exactly, right. And now there seems to be choice in this thing, right? And it's probably too because the parents are realizing that, wait a minute, if I'm questioning it, why would I teach this to my child? And what would be the best way to introduce my child to the whole concept? Because I do believe that I love the Christian upbringing that I had that gave me the foundation for love and compassion and sharing and caring, right?
Right.
But at this time, it has to look different, right? For our new generation of youth, right? And when we talk about, and I often think about that, what does it look like, right? One of the books I think that's a really great book is The Four Agreements, right?
Oh, sure.
Which if we can teach them things like that, that's giving them a foundation for living a life. And we want them to live from within. So as we talk about, when you talk about, when did you decide to just be all the way gay and married, as opposed to following the Catholic tradition of getting a wife and being, because I got that quote, they're gay, married, right, So when did you decide to do all that? And it must have taken a lot to transition into accepting all of that.
I'm still deciding.
Okay, I love it, right? You said, and that's so beautiful.
Don't tell Sam.
Okay. It's so beautiful because we're always transitioning and transforming and moving to different spaces of accepting who we are and accepting what we want, because we've been just thrown so many things about this is how you should be, this is how you should go, and all that. So to be able to sort through all of that and say, well, who am I, and who do I want to be, and how do I want to show up in the world, and what is my contribution, takes, like, you still decide.
Teasing, but yes.
I know.
Because, like I said, I didn't have any role models, right? I didn't have anyone to talk to about it or to look to. It was difficult. And so I think for a long time, I just suppressed it. I played sports. I, put on an act. I spoke in a deeper voice. I did all the things to try and fit in, because, it's hard when you're growing up and you want to, thank God I didn't have social media and all of that when I was first growing up, but you want to have a community and friends, and you want to be liked, and you want to be a part of things. So it was difficult. And I think, most people in my life probably always knew. A lot said they did, but I didn't know. It took a while. I went off to Boston, went to school, and suddenly my world exploded, right? I met people from all different backgrounds and races and cultures. And so that was really great. And then started to kind of figure that out a little bit. And then, of course, when I moved to New York City, I started to date and started to find my way, though I still wasn't comfortable talking about it. So I wasn't out with my family. I wasn't out. Listen, I worked on Broadway. 90% of Broadway is gay, yet for some reason I didn't feel comfortable saying I was gay.
Right.
Deep ingrained sort of things and shame. So it took me a while. And I didn't really fully commit until I met Sam and realized that I was going to have a future with someone. And that was, not that long ago. It was just under 10 years ago. So it was very late in life for me to actually say the words to people. And, it's funny. Sam came to Christmas Day, the first year that we were together. He got on a train and came to Connecticut and met my family. I had a big family of, 5 siblings, tons of nieces and nephews. And so Christmas Eve, he spent here with his chosen family. Christmas Day, he was coming to my family. And I still hadn't told my family that I was gay and had a boyfriend. Because we're Catholic and, we don't speak to each other about those kinds of things. I wrote a letter. My best friend, Mike, said, "You got to tell them." And I said, "Well, I'm writing them an email to tell them."
God, right?
That's what happens when you grow up in that, that situation. And so I wrote this email. I'm driving home now on Christmas Eve, and my best friend Mike calls me and says, "Well, how'd it go?" So what are you talking about? He's like, "Well, did they get the email?" I said, "Oh, I didn't send it." He's like, "Ryan, you're driving home to Connecticut. Sam is showing up the next, you've got to tell them. You have to pick up the phone and tell them." And so again, too afraid, I pulled over, I took the email and I sent it to my parents in text form. And so, it was a long email. So I'm sure my parents got 50 texts in a row. And 10 minutes later, my mom called, I pulled over and, thankfully her first thing was, "Please tell me you didn't write that while you were driving." And just opened up the door for me, to have the conversation. They were very supportive. All my siblings were really supportive. Sam had no idea. They didn't know until I told them later. But everything went smoothly and it was fine. And I realized that I should have done it a long time ago. I had more trust in my family, that they loved me and wouldn't care about that. But, that's not everyone's situation. I'm very lucky. A lot of people don't have that reaction. And so I was just nervous. And then the minute I did it, it's Pride Month, so we can talk about this. The minute I did it, it was 1,000 weights have been lifted. And I felt for the first time I was being, it sounds so cliche, but I felt like I was being my authentic self with all the people I knew, my family, and with everyone. And I no longer had to feel like I was hiding something, because that's exhausting. It's exhausting to keep up a lie, which is what that is. So glad I did it. But yeah, I didn't have any role models. I didn't know anyone. There was as a kid growing up, I just didn't know where to put these feelings, and I didn't feel comfortable talking to anyone about it. So it took me much longer. Now kids, I know that some people still have issues and not everyone is accepting, but a lot of kids today have it in a way much easier, right? It's more widely accepted than it was before. And I'm pleased to see that kids are coming out at a much earlier age and, feel comfortable talking about it and getting the guidance that they need younger than certainly I was.
Right. On the one hand, yes, it sounds like, yes, there are these new avenues for kids. But then on the other ear, I hear "don't say gay" in Florida. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
I know.
it's sort of like,
got to move to New York.
You like just get out of that town.
You're gonna go. It's not going to work out for you there. You go to Disney World?
Right. Just the best thing to do is just get from there and go visit, right?
Totally.
But yeah,
it's humid there anyway.
But it is true. To just for kids, no matter what, to have these places where they can express, right? And at this point, it's just so much about it. It's just so much, right? How do they get to like sort through all of it and sort through their feelings and
Yeah,
sort to how to be authentic and how to be themselves? Because with in my time, it was just like, no, it's not true. We'll beat it out of you. We'll pray it out of you. It's
totally.
just something that's not going to happen. And so that created a whole series of people not being able to be themselves,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Because of the way it was treated. So, I just hope that for youth that they get the support. It's all about getting the
Getting support.
support that they need to explore what's really going on with them, because I can also see by not having that support, it becomes a fad. It just becomes a thing that we're going to
Yeah.
do, and you blow it up, and right, and it becomes like, yes, just do it because everybody's doing it, as opposed to having really true conversations and being real and authentic about what's going on.
Yeah, and I think for kids, like you say, it's, support in general, whether
Mhm.
you're struggling with coming out, whether you're a kid who's depressed, whether
Right.
you have anxiety, because God knows there's enough out there to give you anxiety, but
Mhm.
whatever it is, being able to provide kids with support to feel like they can be comfortable to talk to someone about what's going on. Yes, there's
Mhm.
the fight. Is it the guns that are an issue, or is it mental health that's an issue, or is it
Mhm.
both that's an issue? But
Mhm.
if we don't give kids and people of all ages
Oh, right.
space to figure out their problems,
Mhm.
it's those things fester and brew, and then
Mhm.
that's when bad things happen.
And it's interesting, what came to mind is we have to create a whole new mental health series for kids, right? Oh, because the things that they have to face right now, oh my God, how do we support them through
So
all of this? And so, what's the approach? Because we're not generally thinking about having mental health for kids. That wasn't
yeah,
something that was just like developed. And,
yeah,
you had the special cases. But I think each and every one of them, we need to develop something to support them through this. And it's a whole different kind of program, you
yeah.
know?
There's a lot happening out there.
Right, as much as we need it for our own, sanity, let's shift
Totally.
that. Yeah, and as I talk about what we need, what kids need, and all of that, what would be the top three spiritual practices for you out of all the things that you do? What would be the top three things that support you, like in
What?
your
Yeah,
spiritual toolkit?
yeah. I mean, I say it kind of goes together. I always say, whether it's my relationship or whether it's a business issue, any interaction that feels heated or feels triggering, or like it's too much to solve in that moment, breathing, right? It's always like
Mm,
3 slow, deep breaths,
mhm,
take a moment. You
mhm,
don't have to respond in that second, in that minute, that hour, whatever it is. Take a breath. And if you feel like you can't have that interaction or deal with it at the moment, it's better to say, you know what, I need to go take a walk, or I need to take a moment. I want to have
mhm,
this conversation,
mhm.
but I'm not ready for it. Because I feel like a lot of times, listen, I married a Latino, so 0 to 100, crazy. Uh,
Quickly, right?
take a breath, and then
Mhm,
if you're heated or if you're yelling, you're not in a place where you can actually hear and connect and communicate.
mhm,
So that's a big one, and I find like if I just take a breath, I can
mhm,
sort of get through things in my day. The
mhm,
other one that's sort of related, I know people always say, never go to bed angry.
mhm,
I feel the opposite, and I think it's related to that. Go to
mhm,
bed angry. Sometimes
mhm,
you just need a break. So, if you're fighting or you're having a disagreement, go to
mhm,
bed,
mhm,
and then in the morning, if you wake up, you might have forgotten what you were fighting about. It might not be
mhm,
as important the next morning, but if you can wake up and say, "Good morning, I love you. Let's talk about it," or "Do you still want to talk about it?" Having that space and time might give you a different perspective, might give you time to kind of think about the other person's perspective so that when you wake up, you can start the day fresh and have a better conversation.
But
Uh,
what's interesting about that? They say don't go to bed angry. How many
Yeah.
people do go to bed angry anyway, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, with the hope of reconciling it.
Right. So the reality of it is,
Totally.
right, that's one of the things. Don't go to
Yep.
bed angry, but I found myself going to bed angry, right?
I mean, some people have to just talk it out, and so fine. But if there's the benefit of taking a minute and getting a good night's sleep and attacking it the next day, I say that's better.
That's right. Just go
Yeah.
ahead and go to sleep, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then find time every day to do something that's just for you. I used to, and now I'm getting back to it, but I think meditation is really useful. But if your meditation or your, if it's doing a hobby or going for a walk in the park or painting a picture, whatever it is, find time every day. We can all do that. Life is very busy, but we can all generally find a half an hour or an hour to focus on ourselves and something that brings us joy.
That's what I say. If we can find those moments, right?
Yeah.
Where we
all else
can,
fails, I say chicken parm and wine and grain. That's my spiritual practice.
Right. Some good food
and wine.
And wine, right. So what would be where do you see Triple R going? What's the next level for the company?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited with all that we've accomplished, all that Sam has accomplished. Sam right now has 2 of his designs on display at the V&A Museum in London, which is really exciting. He and I together have designed an exhibit for the Broadway Museum, which is opening this fall, which is really exciting. So our work will be on display amongst other incredible artists and Broadway set designers and really impressive people that we're so humbled to be a part of. So that's exciting. I think, we're continuing to build upon our client roster, which includes nonprofit theaters, other kinds of nonprofit organizations, productions, talent. And so we're committed to further developing those clients, anyone that we feel like we can lend a creative voice to help uplift and elevate, we want to be a part of. And so I think continuing to build that roster is one part of it. And then the second part, which I talked about before, is continuing to build our personal projects. So our productions and
isn't there something based on Sammy's life you guys are working on?
Yeah.
Where is that? Yeah.
Yeah. So Sam Rattel, who is my husband, who look him up, Sammy Rattel on Instagram.
I call him Sammy. Sammy, my Sammy, right? Yeah. No, Sam, right?
Yeah, I know. I always call it. He mostly goes by Sammy. Sam, if I'm really angry at him, sometimes. But he is a brilliant creative mind who a lot of people know his work from styling Billy Porter. So he created all of those magnificent red carpet moments for Billy Porter. But what a lot of people don't know is that Sam grew up in a religious cult in Honduras. And so, his dad was not in the cult. His mother was in the cult. And so up until the time he was a teenager, he grew up in this very restrictive cult. So he wasn't really allowed to wear clothes, right? He wore a uniform. He wasn't allowed to listen to or sing popular music, all of these very restrictive things. So when I met him, he was now super into fashion and super into music, right? All the things that he wasn't allowed to do. And he was performing out and he had all these songs and he didn't know what to do with them. And so, you have such an interesting story, a life story of like growing up in this cult and then getting out of the cult, moving to New York City, finding yourself. Why don't you take all that music and put it into a musical? And so that's what he's done. It's called A New City. And he's turned the leading character into a girl named Ginny. His life story is kind of parceled out amongst all the characters. But it's really, at the end of the day, whether you're into religion, not into religion, whatever the case may be, it's a story about this young girl trying to figure out who she is in the world. And having had all these rules, what does she believe in? And how does she want to live her life? And so it's something that everyone can relate to. It's a really cool pop score. It touches upon, there are all these shows that everyone's into now, right? Like Handmaid's Tale and all these cult shows. So there's a taste of that. It's a really different kind of theater. It's really compelling. It's really interesting. The music's great. So we're working on that, and hope to have the music out soon, and something that people can come and see.
So would y'all get right to Broadway, or would you have to go off Broadway?
Right.
That's right.
To be seen. I mean, I think
Right. So
ready. We'll figure out. There'll probably be a step or two in between Broadway. So he wants to make it immersive. So we're looking
because
for.
I think about the process, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
you're in the business and you're there and you're right there. So you would know, the ins and outs of how to get a production on Broadway. And I think that was more where I was going.
There are a lot of steps. It takes a long time. A lot of people don't know Hamilton took 10 years for Lin-Manuel to get from, creation to an actual production. And he had already had a success on Broadway with In the Heights. So, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to make the musical, make sure that, there are edits, there are changes, making sure it's what you want it to be so then audience responds to it the right way. And then, so you have to get it in front of, when you go to Broadway, you have one shot. When it opens on Broadway, that's it. You have one shot at awards. You have one shot at running. You can't do that again. And so you typically go to like smaller theaters ahead of time. In front of people so that they can say, oh, I hate that song, or oh, that's great. And you can change it and tweak it so that it's the best it can be when you put it on a New York stage. Because as you know, New York audiences and critics can be ruthless.
Yes. It's really good, and I'm really glad you were able to join me tonight. So we're almost, what would you want to leave people with, inspiring or whatever? I always want to give you the last word to sum it up or say something or not or whatever in the moment, right?
I feel like, the biggest thing that I've learned lately and what I'm trying to follow myself is to follow your heart, do the things that make you happy, connect with the people that make you happy, make sure you tell your loved ones and your friends and everyone in your life what you think of them and how much you love them on a daily basis. Live your life in truth. Be truthful to people. That's as Sam always says, that the kindest thing you can do to people is tell them the truth, right? And set out every day to do things that make you happy. As I always say, it's hanging in my office at home. Work hard and be nice to people. That's all.
Yeah. Well, great. I am so excited that you joined me tonight, and I look forward to all the projects. And getting back out. I'm supposed to see Sam sometime soon, this week or next.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to
join in. You're like a real. It's like a real. I feel like I'm on national TV. It's like
that's like you have to have the vision of all that, right? So that's the vision, right?
Holographics, all that. It's all so great. I'm very proud of you.
All right, thanks.
So much fun.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later.
Sounds good.
Okay, bye.
Have a good rest of your week.
Okay, you too. Thank you for joining me tonight on Conversations with Rev G, and I'm here every week from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on WEMS Radio. We are live on Facebook and on YouTube and on Twitch. You can watch the show, all of the shows on YouTube. So if you are missing a show, if you want to see a show from the past, just click on YouTube and enjoy all the shows and the different people that have been on Conversations with Reverend G. My goal is to support you in finding joy and living your best life with grace and ease. And I can be found every day on Facebook as Reverend Grenetta Mason, on Instagram as Rev Grenetta, inspiring you with inspirational quotes and things to support you to get through the day. I will see you again here next week live at 8 p.m. Have a great, wonderful week.